Now you're ready to build the listing detail screen. This screen is very simple and it's actually very similar to our cart component. Let me show you. So here in the screens folder, let's add a new file called listing details screen.js. Here we're going to implement a function component. Now, in this component, first we're going to add a view. This is a container for all our components. In this container, we're going to have an image and a couple of text components. So let's add an image. Next, we set its source to. We use the require function. Now, because we are in the screens folder, we have to go one level up, and then we go to assets and load jacket.jpg. So for now, I want to hard code all these values. I don't want to pass them as props or navigation parameters. I just want to build the layout with some pretty styles. So here's our image. Now, let's apply a bunch of styles to this image. So we import style sheet on the top and then use it over here. So let's define the styles for our image. What do we need here? I'm going to set the width to 100% and the height to 300 pixels. Next, let's set the style here to styles.image. Now let's test our implementation up to this point. Always try to write a bit of code and test it. It's much easier than spending 20 minutes on a big complex screen and then facing all sorts of errors along the way. So save the changes. Now we go to app.js. Let's delete all the code here. This is why I told you this is a temporary solution. So here we're going to render listing details screen. All right, our screen is working well, beautiful. So below this image, let's add the title and the price for this listing. So that is super easy. We use our app text component and set the title to red jacket for sale. Let's add another app text and set the price to $100. Here's what we get. We need to put this inside a container and add some padding in that container, exactly like what we did in our cart component. So let's add a container and then move these two components over here. Next, we set the style to styles.details container. So I'm following the same naming that I used in my cart component. This makes it easier to maintain this application. Now, let's implement the styles. So details container is an object with padding of 20 pixels. Looks good. Now let's apply some styles to our title. So let's set the style to styles.title and then implement it here. So title is an object. Let's set the font to 24 pixels. That's good. I also like to make it a bit thicker, so font weight to 500. Nice. Now let's apply some styles to the price. So here we set style to styles.price. Now in this context, I'm using a very specific name like price as opposed to subtitle because this is not a reusable component. This is an entire screen. We're not going to reuse this somewhere else, okay? So let's stick with this name, price, and then define those styles here. I'm going to set the color to the secondary color. So let's import our color palette. Import colors from, we go one level up, then config, and then colors. Now, we set the color to colors.secondary. I also like to make this bold and set the font size to 20 pixels. Okay, that looks good to me. We just need some vertical margin here because the title and the price are so close. So let's set margin vertical to 10. That looks good to me. We're almost done here. Below these details, we need to show who has posted this listing. We're going to implement that next.